Welcome to Bibliorex, where we read the worst books the world has to offer. I'm Bam Bam.
And I'm Bugs.
And today we're reading Mary fucking Poppins by P.L. Travers.
We're doing our Patreon bonus, Bad Book, Bad Movie, where we read the book, watch the movie, and have some thoughts.
I've got some fucking thoughts today. I'm coming in aggressive.
You're coming in hot. I have some criticisms, but I grew up with the movie, and you did not.
Yeah, I'd never had any contact with the movie because it was a musical, and my family would have said musicals were gay. So not allowed to do that. On top of that, I just don't like musicals.
Right.
Yeah.
I love musicals. So I love the songs in this, even the ones that are bad. But I think most people don't even know Mary Poppins was based on a book.
Yeah, I certainly didn't.
I read the book ages and ages ago because I saw it at the library or something. And I was like, wait, what? I didn't know the movie was based on a book.
Yeah.
I read it, and it was bizarre. I love the fact that you have no contact with it because it's so many people have seen this movie.
The movie is so fucking weird.
Yes. And so to have someone who comes at it as an adult instead of a child with that nostalgia.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Chim chimney. Like, to be able to look at it as an adult fresh is going to be so interesting. I'm so excited.
And we're going to start with the book first.
Yeah, let's cover the basic plot of the book because it is so different. So different than the movie.
Other than the name Mary Poppins, it could be a totally different story, and you'd never know.
You would not know. There's only a couple crossovers, so I think a lot more of you will have watched the movie, maybe not have read the book. We will kind of talk about the differences and give the basic plot of the movie. The plot of the movie is much more simple. The book has 12 chapters, and each one is kind of a short story within itself.
Yeah, I think the audiobook was 4 hours?
Yeah, it was very short.
So we start being directed by a policeman, or through the narrator being directed by a policeman to 17 Cherry Tree Lane.
Yes.
To the relative to the area, small and dilapidated house, I think is what it is.
It's the Banks' family's house. And this is like a suburb of London. Like, this is a smaller town outside of London.
Yeah. Like, definitely still kind of town, city-ish people.
But they say go to the city when they're talking about London.
Right.
They don't live in the center of London.
Yeah. So we start with the old Nanny Kate, leaving. And the Banks need the best possible nanny for the lowest possible price.
Capitalism at its best.
Out of absolutely, well, I guess it's not out of nowhere. It's out of the east. An east wind blows Mary Poppins in like a bipolar bitch storm. The story remarks that Mary Poppins is at best plain and if not a bit ugly.
Yes.
Which not at all like the movie.
No, they pretty her up so much.
That I don't know who that actress is. Lily mentioned it, but she is a doll. Yeah, she's a doll.
And she was very young. I think that was her first film that she did.
And boy, what a set of lungs. But we're in the movie or in the book.
In the book, the mother has 4 children. Mrs. Banks, she has Jane and Michael, who are the 2 older children, and she has the twins, John and Barbara. She doesn't have a job. She is just a Victorian or Edwardian mother, and she is incapable of caring for her children. We don't know why. It doesn't tell us why. Because she is Edwardian, she is not allowed to touch her children.
Yeah, that's so weird to me because she doesn't really leave the house. She just neither of these parents ever see their children during the day.
They do not see their children. They do not interact with them.
And especially at the end of the book, whenever Mary Poppins is getting ready to leave, they're allowed to come down for breakfast.
And they're so excited to see their father at breakfast.
That's fucking weird.
Because it is true to the time and how upper class English were actually raised. They were always raised by nannies and governesses. They were not raised by their parents, and then they were sent to boarding school and raised by teachers. And I think that's a big part of the dysfunction of the English people, period, because they were not raised with people who were their family or people who could love them. Because even, I think, is it in the book or the movie? They're like, don't you love us? Why would you leave if you love us? And she said, what would that do to me?
Yeah.
If I loved every child I cared for, how would that hurt me? That is how governesses and nannies, because they could be discharged, they could be fired, they could retire, they could get pregnant, they could lose their job for any reason.
Yeah. And whenever Mary Poppins does leave, the first thing the kids say to their mom, because the mom is pissed off that Mary Poppins left with no word, they're just like, I fucking hate you, Mom.
We want
our real
back.
mom, Mary Poppins.
We want her back. We want Mary Poppins back. So the story is about the adventures of Mary Poppins, and the book is named Mary Poppins. Mary Poppins is the main character, and this book is meant for adults. I think it is.
Is it?
It is. This was This was a novel. This was a fantasy novel for adults. This is not meant for children.
Oh.
This was meant
that makes sense now. I was very confused. I was like, what fucking children are going to fucking read this?
This was a criticism of Edwardian upper class culture and society.
I'd read a review about that mentioned something like that, and I just didn't understand it because I was coming at it from a frame of the child.
Because you hear Mary Poppins, the movie, it's a Disney movie for children. I think that is part of why she hated the adaptation. Yeah. You can tell she's the main character because it follows her on her day out and leaves the children behind. Sometimes we see what's going on when she's not there, but most of the time she's in the area of these conversations happening. Right. She's observing and part of the story. It's not actually from Jane and Michael's perspective, even though they're the ones speaking most of the book.
Or when the plot is happening, it's mostly happening to Mary Poppins.
Yes, she is doing the thing. She is active, present, and it is her story.
With a couple of exceptions, like when Michael was just being an asshole. Yeah. That was mostly about Michael. And he sucks. I hate these fucking kids.
They're typical little kids. Yeah. And I think in the book they're actually 5 and 6 or 6 and 7. They're smaller than in the movie. Right. And the twins are like 9 months old. There's 12 chapters, and each one is a little tiny story. Mary Poppins blows in on the wind. She refuses to give references because that's so old-fashioned.
She comes in to consider taking the position, not to be given this position.
And that first evening, she gives them each a spoon of medicine from her bottle. And I was thinking, what kind of meds did they put in sleep potions? Opium? They could have put anything in that because this was written in the 1930s.
Yeah. Well,
and it puts them to sleep.
I was immediately nervous because I
was too reading the book.
This woman who has given no reference.
No references.
You don't know who this fucking stranger is that wants to take care of your children and give them mystery medicine. And I was like, I don't trust you, Mary.
And giving it to 9-month-old babies, but it's okay because Jane sees that it's milk colored. Right. Mr. and Mrs. Banks are not really characters in the book. They are ancillary side characters who are there to hire her, vaguely interact a couple times with people, but this is a world of the nursery. We are inside the nursery or outside on adventures with Mary Poppins.
And the children.
We are not in the kitchen. We're not in the living room. We are not in the world of Mr. and Mrs. Banks. Right. Isn't the first story her day off? Where she goes to the park.
Yeah, pretty much immediately. But before that, whenever she's putting the kids to bed and she's like changing her clothes under her gown.
Yes.
And she threatens to call the police on the kid.
For looking under. She takes her large flannel nightgown, puts it over her neck, goes down inside of it, takes off her clothing, because she can't change in front of them, and she doesn't have her own room. She sleeps in the nursery with the children, because there's babies. She's getting up at night to nurse the babies, not physically give them their bottles, but she is caring for 4 children 24 hours a day. She is sleeping in the same room as them.
I love how sassy Mary Poppins is in the book.
Yes.
Because a lot of the times...
abrasive.
Yeah, a lot of the times she just has what more or less translate to modern speak is, fuck you, mind your business, kid.
Yes, all the time.
So everyone's happy that Mary Poppins is there, but she expresses no opinion on the matter.
Nope. And she doesn't smile. She just does her job.
She's never happy. She's never sad.
The only time she smiles in the book is when she sees Bert and has tea in the park. She is very vain, extremely vain. When she stops in front of a shop window, she sees herself in the reflection. The children see books and toys and candies. She sees herself. And I think that's kind of interesting that this character, who is essentially a lesser goddess, is so vain and is also marked as being plain looking. But she admires herself throughout the whole book.
Well, I think there's a lot of impossible amounts of self-confidence. Like, she keeps hardballing the mother into, like, better working conditions. Like, gets Fridays off and doesn't have to do shit that day. So she leaves to go meet the artist / matchman.
Yeah, which is Bert.
He's basically her boyfriend.
She looks at him with fondness.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's explicitly said that they are a couple, but they are very close friends.
Yeah.
And it's possible they sometimes see each other.
As close to just dating as you can be in Victorian times.
Yes. This chapter, I find it to be a very fun part of the movie. They take the children.
I hated that part of the movie.
In the book, it's just her. This is her day off. She goes and finds Bert in the park. They walk into a picture and get served raspberry cakes and tea, and they don't have to pay because he didn't have any money.
And then they get to ride a carousel.
And they get to ride a carousel and have a lovely day, and then she goes home. She has a magical time with Bert. He is not surprised by any of this. He knows her.
Fucking kids, quote Mary Poppins. This is my day.
Yeah.
So when she first meets Bert, he's painting 2 bananas, an apple, and Queen Elizabeth's head, and that is the most cartoonishly British thing I've ever heard of anyone doing ever. And I thought that was a joke, and I'm not sure. I think that was legitimate, right?
It probably was.
Yeah,
But
that's
he
just
probably
really
was
weird.
doing street art of royals. So that's a very, very short part of the book. Going and having tea, going back home. And then the next chapter, isn't that one Laughing Gas, where they go see the uncle?
Yep, they go to see her uncle, Mr. Wig. And Mr. Wig is my favorite favorite character in the book. But on the way, she is like all automatically just done with these kids asking questions. They haven't even gotten outside yet. And she's like, don't ask questions or you will go back home.
She has a don't ask, don't tell policy on everything.
Yeah.
And over in the book, the children are whispering together, did that really happen? Does Mary Poppins do blah, blah?
And then she
Another
fucking
child?
gaslights them.
And she says, would I do such a thing? And they go, she'll never tell. We'll never know. We'll never be able to tell anyone. Like, it really does show the wall between the children and their parents. And nannies could get away with anything.
Yeah.
Because their parents are not interested and don't care.
Yeah, they're not going to believe anything the kid says.
No.
So Miss Persimmon answers the door, and she's very offended that the children just expect that to be Mrs. Wig.
Yeah.
And she is pissed off about this. She storms the fuck off. She I never is away. So,
and these kids are just behaving normally, like normal people.
Yeah, it's
but
just
the
kids
people
asking
in this
questions,
book
and people
treat
hate
them
it.
like they're impertinent, horrific little rascals.
How dare you ask me, an adult, a fucking question?
They go in, and because it's his birthday, and a Friday, and he's laughing. He is up on the ceiling laughing from laughing gas.
Yep, and it's magic.
It's magic.
Yep.
And the children laugh.
And then they start floating, and it's hilarious, and everyone's laughing except Mary Poppins, who just...
She never even smiles.
No, she just kind of mean mugs them and then just floats up with them madly. And then they have tea.
They have tea. Then that's it. Like, it's kind of a prolonged sequence in the movie. But in the book, it's just this thing happened, and then later they're like, and then we had tea and your uncle was floating, and she's like, how dare you insult my uncle?
There's a part where she complains that there's comfort and then there's comfort once she gets up in the air, and I don't know what the fuck she means by that.
Oh, I have no idea.
Yeah, it's weird. And Mr. Wig, he tells a story about his Aunt Emily getting hit by a bus. And they saved her umbrella, and that was funny, wasn't it? That's what he says.
Very weird.
It is.
This book is extremely weird. Like, I guess maybe people of the time, maybe there was a lot of in-jokes or societal critiques that people understood, and so it's possible some of this, 90 years later, doesn't translate for us.
It could be kind of how the author of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea was making fun of, that Bailey guy that wrote all that bullshit about the racist Nazi shit that eventually became Nazi shit. I can't remember the exact reference, but yeah, that was like a stinging critique at the time that is just incomprehensible today because it's...
kind of like Gulliver's Travels. I read that as a kid and I was like, I don't know what the fuck is going on.
Yeah.
And then later it's like, oh, this was a satire, making fun of all these different things. Yeah. And I was like, oh, I have no idea.
Yeah, they leave and then they ask Mary Poppins about it. She gaslights them about it.
Which, reading an article... where there was an interview with the author, she says that she never has Mary Poppins lie.
Yeah, she's just like, would I do that? I'd never do that, would I? It always leaves it open.
It's never, no, that didn't happen, except once, I guess.
Yeah.
It's always, that's insulting to my uncle. That is insulting to me. Would I do such a thing? Can you imagine such a thing? Like... It is very gaslighty. It's very mean. And they try to have this idea that she is introducing these children to magic and showing them this amazing world.
But they have to keep it to themselves.
They have to keep it a secret, and also she is not even willing to share the rules with them. She isn't willing to engage with them afterward or even during.
Well, I guess from a writing perspective, you can't really do that because if you tell the children, the reader knows, and once you explain the magic, it's not fun anymore.
I guess, but she is like based on almost like a Greek goddess or something.
Yeah.
Her level of powers and how many people know her really feels like she is a known quantity to the other characters in the book.
Yeah, almost everyone except for the parents know who Mary Poppins is.
Yeah, Bert knows her, Mrs. Corey knows her, Uncle Wig and the cow. And all these characters know exactly who she is. And even in the movie, all of these people know who Mary Poppins is. Only the children are in ignorance, but we are not allowed to actually explore this world because Mary Poppins shuts it down at the end of every chapter. Go to bed right now. If you do not shut up, you're going to bed without dinner. Now.
No questions. Fuck you.
Yes. Be silent.
Gamma face.
Was the next chapter
it was
with
Mrs.
the dancing
Lark.
cow?
No, next chapter is Mrs. Lark and her little purebred dog, Andrew. Yeah.
That one was a very funny chapter.
So Mrs. Lark treats her dog like an asthmatic paraplegic child.
Yes,
Won't let this dog outside without a sweater.
The dog has to have little leather boots to walk in the park, has to have cooked chicken for every dinner.
Isn't allowed to interact with dogs of a lower class.
That are not purebred like him. And I felt like this was very much making fun of the dog mom persona, only this was 100 years ago, which I found very funny.
Yeah.
And Mrs. Lark is very clearly being made fun of. She is wealthy, fussy, she hates anyone who is not of her social class, and her dog is like a little boy who just wants to be friends with the other kids. Just wants to be a dog.
Andrew calls him a ninky poop. And Mary Poppins disagrees with this, and it seems like she only exists to tell these children that they're wrong at this point to me.
She does translate for Mrs. Lark. So Andrew ran away, and they're trying to find him. And he finally comes back, but he comes back with his friend who's a mutt.
Yeah, a street Arab.
Yeah.
That's one of the references.
Yeah.
So Andrew has a boyfriend?
I wrote their roommates.
He's the
gentleman friend. They're bachelors, lifelong bachelors.
Yeah, they're
the two of them,
confirmed bachelors.
Confirmed bachelors. Andrew, through Mary Poppins, tells Miss Lark that he will not return home. He will not be her dog anymore unless his friend is allowed to come in off the streets, live in the same room as Andrew, which is Miss Lark's bedroom, eat the same food, and be taken care of in the same manner.
And she acts like she is going to die under these conditions.
Crying.
She can't stand it.
The audiobook was really funny because she was so shrill and screeching and crying. Yeah. I thought it was really funny.
The narrator, she is really good.
Yes.
I'll look her up in a little bit.
She was fantastic. And I think she brought it alive for me the way reading the book did not. And was able to give the sarcasm when it needed it, which helped make it a lot more funny.
She has a really good range, because she's really good.
She was very talented, for sure. So
it's narrated by Sophie Thompson.
Oh, okay.
Sophie Thompson, you're fucking awesome.
Yeah, it was fantastic. Andrew gets his way. He gets to move in with, what was the dog's name? Wilfred or Winifred? Or I don't think I wrote it down.
Wilbur?
Wilbur, maybe.
Something like that. She's just like, oh, what a dreadful name.
And I felt like that was a very funny critique and also a funny story that a child would enjoy. This was one of the very short little stories that was amusing and child audience appropriate.
Yeah, a lot of this stuff is high concept that I wouldn't think a child would get, but a lot of stuff is like really low concept, like this, like it kind of sneaks in like a little moral in there that upon
you shouldn't judge a dog by his pedigree,
right?
And that's all Miss Lark does.
Next one is the cow. It's
the cow in the lane.
Jane wakes up with an earache, and Michael is sitting next to the window and describing the goings-on the outside, and everything's so normal that even without Michael telling her everything, she can just kind of guess what's going on out there.
Right. It's just a normal day.
Yeah.
Until he sees a red cow walking along the lane.
Oh, before that, Jane remarks about a man with a weak heart whose doctor gives him advice on a health problem and whose boss will fire him if he follows the doctor's orders.
Oh, yeah. One of their gardeners.
Yeah. That's weird, right?
No. They don't care about they didn't care about staff.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense, but it's a weird inclusion here.
Yeah, I think it was like the children never tell on him because they love him and he's kind.
Oh, is that the one that later on Michael kind of shits on?
Yes.
Okay.
When Michael is bad and goes and says the gardener is being lazy and not doing what you told him to do, they were protecting him because he's kind and he's a nice person.
I didn't pick up on that.
He
I didn't
gets
remember
paid
that was
a
the same
wage and has a place to live because of their kindness, and Mr. and Mrs. Banks aren't really around to care.
Right.
And so they said, yeah, if he listened to his doctor and didn't do all this heavy lifting,
he's going to get fired.
He would get fired, but if he does all this heavy lifting and heavy work, he's going to have a heart attack and die because he's like very old.
Yeah. Yeah, then they see the cow, the red cow, searching for something. Mary Poppins knows this particular cow?
Because it was a friend of her mother's. And this is where she goes and just tells a story. And the story shifts to her narration. And so it's a little story within the story.
And the red cow is a respectable English cow, happy and content to munch in her field and have calves.
Yes. I think that this is kind of
like a feminist narrative, right?
That's how I felt.
Yeah.
Because the cow wakes up one day and is dancing in its field and it cannot stop dancing.
Yeah.
To the point it can't eat or sleep or take care of its calf. She goes to the king to ask for help and the king says, just stop dancing. And she's like, well, I tried. And then they see that it has a star in its horn.
And they look in an encyclopedia like it's fucking Google. And I looked at that and I was like, oh, we've always been like this.
And they said, well, maybe if you jump over the moon, like the cow that jumped over the moon,
Wild
the
logic.
star would come off.
Fine.
Well, I think this is meant to be a nursery story retold for the children.
Yeah.
She's telling them a Mother Goose story.
Yeah.
And it's going through her filter of Mother Goose. And I think this is more of the
Is
deep
this
lore.
maybe necessarily not really what happened to the cow, but she saw a cow walking around free outside and she just made up a story, maybe?
That's possible, but what actually ends up happening is the cow jumps over the moon and loses its star. Its star falls to the earth. It returns home. It's happy, and then it's discontent because it enjoyed how happy the star made it, which caused it to dance. And thereafter, well, she goes to Mary Poppins' mother and says, what should I do? I'm sad. I'm not happy anymore. I miss having the star in my head, but it always made me dance.
Yeah.
And she says, well, you're not likely to get another star falling on the same spot. Maybe if you wander around, you'll get another one.
Go travel, see the world, see some shit. And
That's
in
what
itself
her
is...
mother tells her, is to go travel, explore the world. You have seen new things. You're no longer content being stuck where you were.
Right.
Continue to travel. So I felt like this was more of, to the adults, of sometimes when you find a new thing, you cannot go back to the old.
Right.
You have to explore and change and grow. And so I think it is both a Mother Goose for Children story, but meant to be a moral tale for adults, specifically mothers who are reading this book to their children.
Yeah. Next chapter is Michael being an asshole for a day.
Yes. In Bad Tuesday, Michael wakes up on the wrong side of the bed.
Yeah. Which I say he was being an asshole. He was just being a grumpy kid.
He woke up having a bad attitude, and he just followed his intrusive thoughts.
He's not being a perfect little English gentleman child, and everyone hates him for it.
But you know what I find really interesting is the author writes him as wanting to be bad.
Yeah.
This child decides, I'm going to be mean today. I'm going to kick my sister. I'm going to pull the hair on the babies. I'm going to kick the shins of the cook. And I'm going to knock the tea out of the maid's hands. I'm going to ruin everyone else's day.
Yeah. See, the way I got this one in my head is this one is kind of a parable too. Like, if you don't act in a gentlemanly manner, you're no better than the animals, and you'll get torn apart by nature just like them, is how I took it apart at the end.
Interesting. And like, I didn't feel like when my kid wakes up on the wrong side of the bed and acts this way, I can tell that means he needs a hug.
Yeah.
They don't hug in this world. Yeah. They do not show physical affection, partly because that's not what a nanny is supposed to do. She's not supposed to kiss their cheek and give them hugs. She is there to boss them around and raise them to be future gentlemen.
Little English peoples.
Yes, so he conversely gets away with being an asshole and gets scolded. Those are the only two. His mom is like, oh, Michael, what is wrong? Do you have a fever? Why are you acting this way? And it's really ineffectual because it's not dealing with, he is emotionally out of sorts. So Mary Poppins...
doesn't know how to deal with it.
He doesn't know how to deal with it. No one is helping him manage his emotions. They're just chewing him out for having them.
Yeah, so... Mary Poppins and Michael and Jane go walking, and they come across a magic compass that's just on the fucking ground.
but it was hers. Like, she put it. Somehow, Mary Poppins points out the shiny box up a ways up there. What is that, Michael? And he goes and finds it, and it's a magic compass.
Yeah.
And he's
She's
like, this is mine. I found it. And she said, I saw it first. But it's obviously hers because she knows how to use it.
Right. They go ahead and they visit
the four corners of the earth, basically.
Right, and they see 4 different animals: a polar bear, a parrot, a panda, and a dolphin. Mm-hmm. And I didn't realize this at first until I talked to Lily about it. Mm-hmm. There was an alliteration going there as polar bear, parrot, panda, and it should have been porpoise. And I didn't see it until she mentioned it. And I was like, oh, it's like a false alliteration there. That's very
funny.
Clever.
That is clever.
Yeah. So they visit them. The animals are acting very civil and British and whatnot.
They each are, basically English aristocrats. And they each know Mary Poppins. And they're begging her to stay so they can feed them whatever dinner they're eating.
Yeah, whatever English.
And she's like, nope, we must be off. So they literally spend 45 seconds at each place. And then we have to go to the next place.
Yeah. So they go back home. Mary Poppins puts Michael to bed. And he can't sleep because he's so intent on being an evil little shit.
Yeah, he is laying there thinking of all the ways he can be bad because he is just a bad boy today.
So he goes and steals the compass, but he hits all 4 directions, like all at the same time.
He says north, south, east, west really fast before anyone can steal it from him.
Right. And somehow that summons all the animals that they visited
all 4
earlier.
Animals come in rushing at him like they're going to eat him alive.
Yeah. So that's the best figure I can get on this parallel is if you're going to be an asshole, you're going to be treated like an animal. And you're basically back in the food chain.
In a fright. And Mary Poppins is there to soothe him. And somehow that makes all of the bad feelings go away. And I think it was just the author didn't know how you would actually deal with a child's emotions either. And that was how their emotions were dealt with, was they would finally get worked into a state. And then their mother would be sympathetic, or the person caring for them would finally be, hush, I'm going to rub your forehead, I'm going to sit next to you, and finally connect emotionally. And they're able to relax.
Yeah, because Mary Poppins isn't really being soothing. She's just being neutral. And after his little experience there, that's the best he can get out of it.
Yes, is her to be there to make him feel safe.
And not being mean to him anymore.
It's kind of like the little kid who's mad and runs away from their mom in the grocery store, but then they lose their mom.
Yeah.
And then when they finally get back to their mom, oh, I'm so sorry I ran away. I'll never do that again. I was so scared, and now you're here and I feel safe again. And that is that feeling that was evoked, and he got scared. And she was there. And I think that is kind of the criticism of parenting that the book has, is Mary Poppins is not sweet. She is not kind. She is not nice. She is not pretty. But she is there.
Yeah.
And that is why the children love her, is because she's there. No one else is there. Mom is not there. Dad is not there. Mr. and Mrs. Banks have their own lives, their own things. They do not interact with the children.
Yeah. See, that kind of critique kind of goes over my head because I'm not a parent. So that I would have never come across that in a million years. So.
Yeah, and I know I actually did some reading on the author, and she was a mother, but what happened was she adopted one of a set of twins, and she raised him as a singleton, and he didn't know he was adopted until one day he ran into his twin at 17. And he found out he was adopted and that he had a twin, and I think that destroyed their relationship. So she did raise a child. She was never married, but I think she was kind of stuck not knowing how to parent, and then trying to do her best. And she grew up with an alcoholic father, and he died when she was 7, and she grew up like in this really poor, poverty-stricken household in a very difficult way. So it feels to me like someone who was wanting to do better than what they saw.
Right.
And this is the better that they had.
And don't necessarily have too much of a way forward. Like, I mean, considering the times, there was only so much you could progress at a time. Mm-hmm. But that's depressing. And speaking of depressing things that I don't understand, Bird Woman.
I don't really know what
Yeah.
purpose that chapter served in the book.
It's so confusing. So Mary Poppins and the kids go to the city to visit their dad.
Mm-hmm. And they never see him.
No.
So this is like
it's not really
amazing.
Yeah, it's just a... so Bird Woman is in front of this St. Paul's Cathedral or something, selling breadcrumbs to feed pigeons, and all she says is, "Feed the birds, tuppence a bag. Feed the birds, tuppence a bag." Over and over again.
The narrator of the audiobook.
Yeah, she's
It was
really
so
good.
grating. I wanted to strangle her listening to this. She did such a good impersonation.
I loved it because I was listening to it like 2 times speed, and it was so fast.
my God!
It was so funny.
Feed the pigeons, tuppence a bag. Feed the pigeons, tuppence a bag.
It was hilarious.
It was so high pitched, and I honestly don't know what the point of that chapter was, except to point out how the underclass live.
Yeah, I guess so. Well, also the way Michael treats her a little bit too. He goes to buy a bag, and Michael asks why she doesn't sell penny bags so he could buy 2 of them. Mm-hmm. And that's not how fucking capitalism works, you little shit.
He is also like 5.
I know, but
It's
fuck this
Jane
kid.
and Michael, and Jane is like 6, and he is like 5.
Yeah.
He's tiny.
So he asked her that question, and she's just like, feed the birds, tuppence a bag, and she doesn't say anything else. I don't know that she's capable of saying anything else.
I don't know.
And then as they're leaving, Michael asks Jane to tell him the story that apparently he's heard already about what happens to Bird Woman at the end of the day. As basically the birds clean up all the extra breadcrumbs that they didn't eat already, and they just get, I don't know, they bathe themselves and then they roost on Bird Woman.
Like she's their home.
Yeah. And Mary Poppins is just like, fuck you, no, that's not what happens. And then Jane's just like, yes, that is what happens. And then Michael's just like, I'm going to believe Jane. Mm-hmm. I don't.
To be
that's the end of it. I don't understand.
At about this time in the book, I started having like those drift off, and I'm thinking about the laundry I need to do because that's more interesting. And then I'd jerk back and be like, oh, what's going on?
Yeah,
I was getting so burnt out on Mary Poppins. This is what, 2 hours in, and I'm like,
something like that. That's roughly
I'm
halfway.
so tired. Like this is just.
And that was just such a nothing chapter. Oh, we do find out that Mary Poppins is bird racist, though.
What did she say? I don't remember.
Because she doesn't think of birds as anything, but she just calls all of them sparrows.
Oh yeah.
And anytime she meets a bird in the story, they're a sparrow. Doesn't matter what kind they are, and she's just bird racist. And that's cool. I've never met a bird racist before. So next chapter is Mary Poppins mean mugging a butcher that is hitting on her, and then her leaving the butcher shop and then going to a depressed fishmonger.
God, that was, yes. He is just, and this felt like maybe this is going over my head. Mm-hmm. Maybe these were popular culture characters that she was making fun of, and I just don't get.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think it was just 2 characters that Mary Poppins just got to say British fuck you to.
Quite possibly. That's the chapter called Mrs. Corey, right? Because that's after that they go to the store to buy gingerbread.
Oh, there is one thing about the depressed fishmonger. Jane says his mother fed him bread and water and he never forgot it. What the fuck does that mean?
And that's why he was so depressed.
He wasn't breastfed? Is that what that is?
No, it's during this time, as a punishment, you could be sent to bed with only bread and water for your dinner.
Okay.
So you wouldn't get tea, you wouldn't get milk, you wouldn't get broth. And that was a form of punishment. Kind of like we stick kids their nose in the corner, go sit in the corner, and think about what you've done. They would send children early to bed, and they would make them that, and their bread was not nice like our bread.
Right.
Their bread was
our bread was
horse
like really sugary.
Our bread is soft and easy to chew. Theirs, they would prefer to eat it with a lot of stuff on it, like butter, jam,
fucking Marmite,
soup, whatever, to make it palatable and to make it more enjoyable.
Yeah.
If you have it with just water, it doesn't taste good. You either have to dip it in the water to soften it and chew it, or it's just dry and hard.
Okay, I guess that makes sense. Yeah, that was just fucking incomprehensible to me.
So the idea is that his mother didn't love him and punished him every night by feeding him punishment food.
Okay,
and she never gave him
and
butter on his
now
bread.
He has clinical depression.
And now he has
about
clinical
it.
depression because his mother just shit on him every day, and he was never fed butter, never fed jam, never given tea or milk. And that also increases people's likelihood of having rickets and actual physical deformities because you don't get enough nutrition.
Yeah, that's funny because Mary Poppins is just like, yeah, you're bumming everybody out. Get out, I'm leaving. And then Jane's just like, your mom doesn't fucking love you.
Every single chapter is the children making observations and her just saying, shut the fuck up. In a very British way.
Yeah, I love that. So, yeah.
They go to see Mrs. Corey.
Yeah, Michael asks if they're ever going home, and Mary Poppins says, British, keep asking and you won't. Mm-hmm. You're lucky it's Friday, or you'd go home in an absolute twink.
I don't know what that meant.
Yeah, I think what it is you would go home like that.
Oh,
I think
maybe.
is what.
Kind of like people used to say when I was a kid. They'd say, "I'll knock you into next Tuesday." Like you would wake up.
Okay.
And on Tuesday, because I'll knock you out.
Yeah, I didn't get that one for a long time either.
Oh, really? Yeah.
For all the Tuesdays I went to. But yeah, I looked it up, and back then they actually used the word twink the way we do today.
I don't know how that's used now.
Oh boy. Okay. So, twink is a term used for a slender young gay man.
Oh.
Yeah. And I looked it up, and in the 1920s, and this was written in the 30s, they used that word for the same reason. So, yeah, I Googled that, and I was very confused. I was like, why did she use that word?
Oh. I was just like, I assumed it meant you would get home in a hurry or blacked out from getting smacked upside the head. Like, I just didn't know what she meant.
For a moment, I was like, is she going to sell him into prostitution? What the fuck is happening? What is this book? But yeah, from the context, I think she just, like, you'll go home in a wink or something.
Okay.
Yeah, she says they're going to go get gingerbread cookies.
At Mrs. Corey. This chapter disturbed me more than all the other chapters.
Yeah. It was weird.
It was so weird. And it also reinforces the idea that this really wasn't meant for children. Mm-hmm. Or it was meant for children the way that the Brothers Grimm is meant for children.
Yeah, maybe.
Like, this is dark fantasy for children.
I'm not sure. I don't understand.
So Mrs. Corey is very small, and her children are giants who are very fat.
And she just badgers the fuck out of them.
She chews them out and calls them names and is so mean to them the whole time.
Just fucking roast these girls.
She's very mean to her children, to her two daughters. She's very nice to Jane, Michael, and the twins, and she is so nice that she breaks off two of her fingers and feeds them to the twins.
Yeah, and I guess she's made of candy.
She's made of gingerbread. Her fingers were gingerbread cookies.
We find that out at the end of the sentence.
We find that out at the end of the sentence.
Very strange at the beginning. I don't know, where is this going?
I know. I was like, wait, what? So she gives each of the babies a gingerbread cookie that was her finger, and then her fingers grow back. Yeah. And she even says when she's having a tummy ache in bed at bedtime,
she'll chew her own fingers.
She'll eat her own fingers to fix her tummy ache. Yeah. And it's like, I can see this being like Brothers Grimm.
Yeah.
Like, this is odd and weird.
Well, it gets a little more into that because she talks about stuff that's happened in the past, like since King William. Like, she has at least lived 500 years old.
Yes, like nearly 1,000 years. Like, she is very old.
So she badgers the daughter Annie until she cries, just calling her an idiot. Like, why the fuck did you think, you idiot? Oh, little bitch gonna cry? Little bitch gonna cry? And then she looks at the other one. She's just like, what are you looking at? You're next. But she gives the kids a bunch of cookies with star paper.
I think the paper is shaped like a star. So when
Yeah.
you fold it into the middle, it'll be closed.
Okay.
And then taped or whatever, glued shut. So I think that's why it was star shaped. So when you unfold it, it's a golden star.
Okay. So then she grills the kids on what they do with the papers.
I know.
And it's really that already. I'm like, why do you
Why
need
do
to know?
you need to know? And so they tell them that they keep their paper stars
Hidden
in
in
the
their
wardrobe
rooms.
and in the sock drawer or whatever.
Yeah. So
And
later
she's
that night,
paying very close attention to where they hide their stars.
Yeah.
Because they keep each of them.
so later that night, Mary Poppins comes in their room and steals
and
those fucking
steals their
paper
paper stars.
to take to Miss Corey so she can glue the literal stars to the literal sky.
Yeah, like
with
they climb
glue.
ladders. They climb ladders and stick them back onto the sky.
Yeah, and it's like, is this world flat? The sky is a ceiling? What is this?
And that was part of what made me feel like maybe Mary Poppins is like a goddess, and all these other people she knows are random, like,
Well, it could be like just
mythological
forces.
characters.
Yeah, they could be like forces of nature, just like in Greek mythological stories. 'Cause,
Right.
Especially considering later on.
Yeah, so I was just like, and that was really rude of you to take their stars, but if you needed them back, you should make that clear to your customers.
Yeah.
Because all the rest of them, are getting thrown away. So would you have less stars in the sky?
Like, I keep feeling like there's some sort of nefarious ritual. Like, part of the ritual is that the children have them and then they're stolen.
Taking them away is part of the thing.
Yeah, that imbues the paper with magic somehow.
And then Mary Poppins, they say, why did Mary Poppins take them? Or what did she do? Why is this going on? And like Jane says, she'll never tell.
Yeah.
She will never tell.
We're not allowed to know that.
We're not allowed to know this. And that is part of what I found so frustrating. Of Jane and Michael are not allowed to know, and we are not allowed either.
So next sentence just fucking bums me out. I hate this chapter. This is the chapter when the twins have a secret kind of sentience along
John and
with
Barbara's story.
yeah, along with all the other things that exist. Like the sunlight has sentience.
The sunlight can talk to them.
Yeah.
And the wind
And
and
the-
the birds and
Like
and
it's
the children
obvious
talk back to them.
Yeah, and it's obvious to the twins that there is this secret language, and they're like, it's weird that none of the adults or the older kids have this. But that's when the Sparrow and Mary Poppins ruin these children's short fucking sentience period.
Right, by telling them it'll be gone soon.
Yeah.
So the idea is that babies are able to understand the language of the universe. They're able to understand stars and starlight, sun and sunshine, wind, birds, and understand everything. And Mary Poppins is able to speak to them, and she also understands this language of the universe. They lose it with their first teeth or their first birthday, and they become normal, stupid humans.
Yeah.
And I think this is where I start getting the idea that maybe Mary Poppins herself is not like just a witch or just a person with magic, that she is more like a goddess or
Yeah,
a
that's-
mythological creature.
That's definitely what I was getting at this
human.
point, because even the Sparrow mentions yeah, she's not like the rest of you humans.
Yeah, Mary Poppins is not like you. Like, she knows how to talk to us, and she is special. Mary Poppins is special and different.
Yeah. So yeah, that just really bummed me out, and it bums out the infants.
And they cry.
Yeah.
They start crying.
They're wailing.
They're crying
at
and
the
shrieking.
loss of their consciousness.
Because they tell her, yeah, you'll
Their
forget by the time you
understanding
get
of
their
the
teeth.
world.
And they're like, we don't want to forget.
Yeah.
Why would you make us forget? And it's like, well, you just do.
Why would you give this to Why would you write a story where you just give these babies this level of consciousness only to take it away and make me feel that? Why would you do that? So at the end of the chapter, they just become dumbass babies.
Yeah, who just burgle and glug, 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 and they don't know how to speak to the bird
And even the
anymore.
Sparrow, who was being like an asshole the entire chapter,
to
he's
the
just
whole
like,
time.
and he's
I
just
was
like,
bummed
oh, I'm
out.
sad.
I'm gonna go home. I have to go sweep my floor. I'm tired of this. So is that when the birthday happens? I think I didn't write it down.
Let's see.
The zoo.
Yeah, it is the zoo next.
And I feel like if the point of the book is to build up Mary Poppins and she starts out human and normal and we slowly go through the progression of finding out who she is.
Jumps her up a little further up that rung.
Right, because all these other people see she's magical. The children have experienced her as magical. This is where we have her revealed as magical.
Right. So at the beginning of the chapter, Mary Poppins is just kind of being a bitch more than usual.
She's like, get home, get to bed, finish your dinner, hurry up, hurry up.
Brokering even less argument and conversation than usual.
She is less patient than her usual self.
Yeah, Mike, just as they're passing by the zoo, he's wondering, well, I wonder what happens at the zoo at night. You know, like a kid would think.
Yes.
And she's just like, well, wouldn't you like to know?
That's none of your business, bitch.
Fuck you, kid, for asking questions.
Yeah.
Spit Spot seems to be just for going to bed. Is that a thing? Because every time they go to bed, she's just like, Spit Spot off
I
to
think
bed.
it's just be quick.
Yeah,
I think it's just be quick. Hurry up.
Weird. I just thought that was funny. At the first, I was like, that's a very British thing to say, is just Spit Spot. So during the night, a voice tells the children to follow until they finally make it to the zoo at night, where a bear is giving tickets instead of taking tickets because everything's backwards.
Everything's topsy-turvy because it's at night. And it's the birthday.
And humans are in
cages,
the enclosure, and animals are running the zoo.
Did you love that part where they said these are the ones who lollygagged and didn't leave the zoo when they were told, so they got locked up and stuck here?
So,
and I was like, that is something I would tell my kids when they were little. If you don't hurry up and we get home, they will lock you in the cage.
And I wonder if there's like sort of an environmentalist message in a way.
This
here.
is where her society critique comes through, and she wants to turn society upside down and make you look at it from a different perspective.
And make it more clear how awful zoos are and just the way we treat animals, I guess. Because the people that are in the enclosure, they fucking hate it.
Oh, yeah.
That really disgruntled seal is just like, oh, well, I'm going to make you fucking
I'm going to make you swim for orange peels.
No one asked me if I could swim. Fuck you.
Yeah. Admiral Boom is in one of the cages, and he's pissed off because they're not bringing him pork and cake. They're throwing breadcrumbs at him.
Yeah. I like him much better in this than in the movie, because he's just shooting a goddamn cannon all movie, and that's all he does.
That's all he does.
It's fucking stupid.
He doesn't do much. Well, he curses. He does curse a lot, but it's not written out. It just says he was cursing. The children are wandering around. They get with a lion who has his hair permed. The lion walks them around, but I thought it was really funny. Jane is like, it is upside down night, but he is a lion, so she kept Michael between her and the lion because he's such a fat child. The lion would be happy just eating
very
him.
Funny.
I thought that was such a funny child thing to do.
So they hear about the birthday, and turns out it's Mary Poppins.
Everyone is saying the birthday, and the kids are like, whose birthday could it be?
Yeah.
Like, you dumb kids. That's so obvious.
They go to the gathering of the animals, and where Mary Poppins is, and they're just all sat. Well, they're sat down on a bear's.
Worshiping her.
Yeah, it's weird.
They're almost worshiping her like she is a goddess of nature, and they are coming to pay tribute because it's her birthday on a full moon.
Yeah.
Is that what it is?
I think so. So this is where they introduce the true king of the jungle, or of the animals in general.
Who is a snake.
Because I think it's the bear says that he's the king of them all. Now they call him a hammer dryad.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what that was.
Well, I looked up the Greek. It's a Greek mythological creature. It's sort of like a satyr, but the story keeps referring to, describing it as like a cobra, because he's got a hood, he's scaly, he
has a snake skin to give her for a belt.
Right. And he's like super old. So I was really confused about that. But the dryad refers to Mary Poppins as a cousin, or as his cousin.
Yes.
Specifically?
Like they're related.
Yeah. And further reinforcing that she's part of the Greek pantheon in some fashion.
Right. And he sheds his skin.
To give to her as a gift.
And gives it to her as a gift. But it's the size of a normal snake skin, and she uses it as a belt. and it's like gold. It's like a gold.
Yeah, and he like inlays something in it with
He
his
writes on
teeth?
it. I think with his tail. I think with the tip of his tail, he wrote on it.
That's much more
Like
charming.
to Mary or something.
Oh, it was from all of us here at the zoos. That way, at the end of the story, the children can read it, and they're just
That
like,
is
"Oh,
like
there
their
was a
only
zoo."
proof. Like that's their only proof that they had this had
That's
happened.
such a silly thing to write on a belt, though.
Yeah.
So yeah, they do some kind of animal ritual, and the penguin is reciting a shitty bit of poetry. It's like Mary, my deario or something, because the penguin was agonizing that he was supposed to be good at rhyming things, and everybody was expecting it of him.
All of these animals know Mary Poppins. And
anytime when she's not around, they're just normal animals again.
right. So it's like they become magical
They're
when
imbued
she's around.
with sentience when she's there to imbue it, I guess.
Right. Which I just think is interesting, and also I can see how, as the author wrote this, the movie take on Mary Poppins is very shallow, vapid,
Yeah.
boring.
I mean, for
dull.
children, but... So, the confusing thing I have, like, just with, like, the power system at play here, which it's probably not, like, really fleshed out or anything like that, but, like, with Bert and the painting, like, he's controlling everything that's happening in there, presumably, because that's, like, his little spell.
Drawing. He knows what's in it.
Yeah, so the waiter that was taking their orders, that's him talking through the waiter, more or less. So I'm wondering if it's like a similar thing with the animals, and this is just Mary Poppins speaking through the animals, and she's like got some sort of like nature control going on. I'm talking a little bit out of my ass, but I had that thought. That's
And you
like
know,
a headcanon
I know I
for me.
read the other books because there was like 4 or 5 in the series. I don't remember what happened in any of the other ones, and I know they got less interesting as
Yeah.
time went on.
Yeah. So
We're almost at the end of the book.
Yeah, they wake up and they're just like, "Oh, it was a dream." And they're like, "Oh, it's not. It's fine."
And of course, they're like, we saw you at the zoo last night. And she was like, zoo? Me? I would never be, I would be in my bed like a proper person.
Yeah, fuck you, quit asking questions, snitch.
The end of the book is they go Christmas shopping, and this is where they meet Maya, one of the Pleiades.
Oh. There's a couple of lines that I really liked. It's Jane, Michael, and Mary Poppins talking at the very beginning of the chapter. Jane says, "I smell snow." Michael says, "I smell Christmas trees." Mary Poppins says, "I smell fried fish." I was like, that's just fucking delightful. So yeah, Mary Poppins is obsessed with her reflection and her new gloves. Some new
She
fur
has
lined
beautiful
gloves.
new gloves.
So they go talk to Santa, and it's children talking to Santa. Who gives a shit?
They go shopping. Little kids buy things for their siblings, but it's actually for themselves, which is normal child behavior.
Yeah. Mary Poppins says, "I wouldn't have like a cup of tea." And Michael says, "Would you quarter like it?" And, "Fuck you, kid." Mary Poppins says, basically.
Yeah.
So the toys are like calling to the children as Mary Poppins is forcing them to leave. So then a near naked child gets caught in a revolving door. Which is always funny. She's a constellation shopping for her family. She's Maya, the second of the Pleiades, like you said.
The stars in the sky. But she is in human child form.
Yeah, and there's some lore in actual Greek mythology. She's one of the 7 daughters of Atlas who Zeus turned into stars to save them from getting raped.
Lovely.
Yeah, I'm surprised that Zeus wasn't the one doing the raping.
Maya is Christmas shopping for her sisters, the other stars, but she doesn't get a present for herself. So she has 6 presents, and they notice that Maya will not have a present for herself at Christmas. And this is the only time that we see Mary Poppins be actually kind and have emotions and be sweet.
And someone, Michael asked her if she's crying. She's like, "Fuck you, I'm not crying. I just got something in my eye."
She took off her beautiful new gloves and stuck them on the hands of the little star child.
Which is really sweet. That's incomprehensibly sweet.
Because Mary Poppins is a nanny and does not make much money. And she had obviously saved up quite a bit to buy these very lovely. And every time they stop at a window, she stops and admires her new gloves. And she is very, very vain. Much more vain than even the movie, Mary Poppins. And so the fact that she gives her new, beautiful gloves to Maya is very touching and very sweet. And then she's like, well, of course I did. What else would I do? She cannot be going around without gloves. She'll freeze to death, you know.
And Mrs. Bank, at the end, she asked Mary Poppins about the gloves. And Mary Poppins just says, fuck you, mind your business, isn't it? Final chapter.
The west wind.
The west wind blows in. So it's time for Mary Poppins to leave because she made a promise at the end that she would only leave whenever the wind changed.
Which here would be 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, so this is the part where they were never... I realized that they were never allowed to come down to breakfast before now, and I was fucking horrified. I was like, what the fuck is this? And then probably the funniest thing in the book is funny and awful. Mr. Banks lost his bag and insists that someone else moved it. Mrs. Banks points out where it is and how he lost it. He thinks it's very rude of her not to have taken the blame to spare his feelings.
Yeah.
I'm like, you motherfucker.
And she doesn't say goodbye. At least in the movie she says goodbye.
The children are agonizing and nervous all day.
They know the wind changed.
And Mary Poppins knows that they're nervous about it, and she fucking ducks them.
She lies and says, oh, I'm going to go do this other thing.
Yeah.
And then just packs up and leaves when they're not there.
So everyone's sad, and Mrs. Banks is very cross.
Yes, because now she has to wash the children herself.
And the children immediately lash out for their cult leader mother.
Well, because, I mean, children are attached to the people who care for them.
Yeah. It makes... Now that you've explained it to me through this, it makes a lot more sense.
I found the ending to be very sad.
Yeah.
Because she came in, she gave them attention for basically a year, I guess.
Yeah.
And then she's gone. And children really need a stable parental figure.
Yeah, kids don't like it.
It doesn't have to be your biological parent, but it needs to be a consistent caretaker. And to have their nannies change every year it can be damaging.
Yeah, kids hate it when you abandon them.
Yes, they do.
So Mary Poppins left a painting of herself with a note saying that Michael got the compass and Jane gets the painting of her, and says au revoir, which they take some deal of heart from this because it means that they'll see her again because Mary Poppins never lies. And Jane lets Michael borrow the painting as he's going to sleep, and she soothes him, and then that's the end of the story.
Yep, and I don't think it's a good book.
It's bizarre.
I don't think it is written consistently for adult or children audiences because it's really, really odd. And a lot of the language feels like it is for children, but the main character is an adult.
Yeah.
And we're never really, truly transported into that world of magic. We only see it through a window, and then we're lied to over and over that we didn't actually see it.
Yeah, I think both the book and the movie are a case of it's iconic, but is it good?
Right. I hadn't seen the movie in a long time, and I watched it last night, and I was like, God damn, why did they name this movie Mary Poppins? This movie, the main character is Mr. Banks.
Yeah.
He gets the most face time, he gets the character arc, he gets the most sympathy of anyone, and Mary Poppins is there to support his character arc.
Yeah, it's fun. I feel like it's just about evenly split between Mr. Banks and Dick Van Dyke.
But Dick Van Dyke even supports Mr. Banks' character arc and makes the children feel sympathetic for their father who chewed them out. Oh, poor white man who has so much money. Oh, the white man's burden you bear.
Which in the movie, they're not even poor in that one.
No, in the book they
They're
are
very
fairly
well
poor.
off.
Well, they're poor in that they have a rough-looking house, but they have 4 or 5 servants. They have the gardener, they have the cook, they have the maid, and they have a nanny. They are upper crust. They are poor in that they don't have new things or a fancy house. Let's get to the movie.
Yeah. So first establishing shot. It's a British Disney movie. You got to get a shot of Big Ben and the Thames. Next question I had while watching this. Who the fuck is Dick Van Dyke?
Right, and you got introduced to him.
And that was a fucking introduction.
Yes.
Just him being a one-man band.
Sure, one-man band. Yep. Did you notice that Mrs. Corey is in that opening scene?
She looks like a ancient 14-year-old.
Yes, because she is like 4 foot tall, but she is a weird-looking character.
It's almost like you took a 12-year-old and just caked him up with makeup and gray hair. So Mary Poppins is sitting on a cloud, like in Stephen Demogorgon.
I was actually thinking about that. I listened to Stephen Demogorgon this morning, and I was like, oh, that's how they think clouds work, too.
So Lily had to point out that the makeup that she's using is most likely poisonous or lead-filled or something.
Yeah, lead-based.
So Dick Van Dyke is just going the fuck off on this one-man band shit.
Yeah.
And I was so confused.
Right. What happened was, instead of having a narrator, like we do in the book, they made Bert become the narrator. He gives us the exposition, he leads us through the story, and he is a much bigger character than in the book, period. Let me just do a very fast rundown of the plot of the book, and then we can just hash out all
otherwise
the things
I will stop you like every 5 seconds.
I know.
God damn it.
I know. Okay, so we've gone through the book. Basic idea, nanny comes to house, lives with family, leaves after a year. Same idea. She has magical powers, helps the children become better people, maybe? In the movie, we focus on the dad, the mom, Bert, and all these other characters, and it is not about Mary Poppins. They go to the park, but it's her, Bert, and the children. They go on the merry-go-round. They go on horse race. That's magical with cartoons. And then we have the floating uncle, and it's that same scene is basically the same. We skip a lot of stuff. We skip the stuff with Andrew, the dog. He's a vague character who comes through. We skip Mrs. Corey in the bakery. We skip the dancing cow. We skip most of the book.
Yeah, no.
We skip the zoo.
Add in some other shit that wasn't in the book at all.
We skip John and Barbara's story because they don't even exist.
Yeah.
Instead, we replace it with a lot of musical numbers. We add in the mom is a suffragette and she has to have a dance and song number. We add in the dad is an arrogant asshole who is exemplary of old British ideas and he's a repressive, angry dad. He gets his own song and dance number, whatever.
And they even bring in his job into the story, even though it was only vaguely mentioned in the book.
You don't even really know that he's a banker in the book.
Yeah.
It's vaguely he's making money.
He's doing something in finance.
Right. In the movie, the idea is that Mary Poppins comes in. She's beautiful. She's happy. She's nice. She's never cross. And she improves their lives. And then once they have learned their lesson, she goes away. So the dad has always been glower and mean and sour. And everyone around him is becoming happy. And
he
he's
fucking hates
pissed
it.
off about it. So he goes to take the children. She talks him into taking the children with him to the bank. They cause a run on the bank. We add in random bankers and songs about finance. And he gets fired.
Fucking weird. That whole thing.
Yes. And then he gets fired because his children caused the run on the bank. And Well, because Michael said, give me my money.
Yeah.
And the other person said, they won't give someone his money. I'm going to get mine.
I feel like that was the banker's fault.
Well, they panicked very fast. Instead of making an explanation of what's going on, a little boy is crying.
Yeah.
Anyway, on and on and on, a big mess. And now that Mr. Banks has lost his job, humiliated by his employer, they pop a hole in his hat, they destroy his umbrella, they rip up his flower. He is down in the dumps, and now he can say supercalifragilisticexpialidocious because the magic that Mary Poppins had is able to work on him now that he is down in the dumps and no longer
doesn't
powerful.
Have all his worldly bullshit in the way.
He has become vulnerable, and now her magic will work on him.
Like a cult leader.
Yeah. He goes home. They think he jumped in the river and drowned himself.
Yeah, very funny. There's just a common jumping spot somewhere.
Yeah. Instead, all night, he was making a kite, and they go fly a kite, and then Mary Poppins floats away.
Like, oh, well, they're talking to their children now. I don't have to be here.
Right. In between, we have dancing on the chimneys with the chimney sweeps. We have dancing in the park. We have just have a lot of dance numbers that are not. They're basically little tiny cutesy stories within the story, but they don't matter to the plot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that whole thing with the chimney sweep dance.
Yeah.
God damn, does it last? Fuck.
8.5 minutes. I read.
Stop. It lasts long enough that I got tired of it. I left and went to the bathroom, got a drink, put something in the microwave, and came back and still had to watch fucking 3 minutes of it.
I was watching it, remembering how I recreated that dance with a broom as a 12-year-old.
Oh my God.
We didn't have internet.
Horrible.
I was so bored.
I would throw rocks at other kids much rather than do that.
I was singing along all the songs.
Oh my God.
Because I love musicals.
Yeah.
You hate them. I love musicals.
Dear listener, I cannot express to you how much I hate musicals. And I'm a little weird anyway. I'm not huge on music in general.
He's got a 10 ear.
Yeah. I was deaf until I was like 5. Mm-hmm. So I think I've just got like I just don't have an ear for music at all. Mm-hmm. So it's just not for me. And watching musicals makes me want to run a nice hot bath and drop a toaster in it.
And see, I grew up with musicals because it was one of the few things my mom let us watch. Mm-hmm. And I love music. I love singing. I loved dancing as a kid. Mm-hmm. So it's just one of those things that me and Lily will get together and just start singing musicals. Looks like he wants to cry. Mm-hmm. Shit, I said your name. And it'll make Bam Bam look like he wants to jump out the window.
Mm-hmm. Preferably a high one. On some rocks.
I think a big part of you hating this movie was the musicals. Me hating it was, why is it called Mary Poppins? Mm-hmm. It's about Mr. Banks.
Yeah, I didn't have time to really make a great deal of critique on the movie because I was just discovering Dick Van Dyke for the first time.
He has a huge mouth.
Holy shit.
That mouth opens
That
wide.
Guy's fucking nutty.
He has those long legs. His legs are like 6 feet long. Mm-hmm. He is gangly.
He's still alive.
He is.
He was like born in 1926.
Yeah, he is ancient.
And still learning to play the ukulele or something, wasn't it?
Yep.
Dude's fucking wild.
Yep.
I got really pissed off at the beginning because Dick Van Dyke rhymes constable with responsible. And I don't think we should ally with the UK anymore as a nation, personally. Yeah, Miss Coria simultaneously...
It was an American who wrote that, though.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Dick Van Dyke's line about things happening like they did before makes me think that Mary Poppins is like the Jeepers Creepers.
Like this force of nature that comes through periodically.
Yeah, like she comes and does this like every couple hundred years or something. It's very upsetting. Long before Jeepers Creepers was ever written, so...
I feel like the book was much more like Terry Pratchett. Mm-hmm. It was criticizing specific things. It was using humor in specific ways. Yeah. It was meant for adults, and it had its points it was wanting to make. Mm-hmm. The movie comes along and says, we don't want to make those points because it would offend the people paying for this movie and watching this movie. We're going to make fun of other things. Mm-hmm. So the only thing they really criticize is bankers and mean dads. Mm-hmm. And they really skip the stuff like with the zoo. We're not going to pay attention to animals being abused. We're not going to notice poor people. They kind of try to use the bird woman
and Dick Van Dyke
and Dick Van Dyke as lower class people who deserve to be noticed. Mm-hmm. They deserve to be paid attention to. Yeah. So it felt like it did have some criticisms of it, and the idea is that Mr. Banks is he doesn't like his children, but he wants them to grow up to be stiff
Just like-
upper lip gentlemen just like him.
Upstanding
And
British citizens.
yes, the moral of the story is you should be kind and sweet and caring like Mary Poppins. And she is sweet and kind and loving.
Sickly so. I can't stand this
Saccharine
character.
sweet.
Ugh.
And she's beautiful, and she's perfect, and she's never cross and always kind, and she's always perfect at everything she does.
And just a fucking bore. Let me get your opinion on the first part when the cop is bringing the kids in. How did you feel about that scene? Specifically about the cop.
He was trying to say you need to be nicer to your kids.
Yeah.
And it wasn't their fault. They were just being children.
Right.
And the dad was definitely, they're not children. They should be gentlemen and ladies like me.
Okay.
He is holding them to adult levels of standards. And everyone around him is trying to tell him they're children. These are little kids.
Okay.
And at the end, he recognizes their children and takes them to fly a kite.
Yeah.
That's why this movie is about Mr. Banks. It is not about Mary Poppins.
Yeah, he's the one with the character arc.
Right. Her character arc is going from normal plain nanny to goddess. His is going from crotchety old dad to playful kind dad.
The way I interpreted that scene there was the cop was like hanging out to make sure that Mr. Banks didn't like cane his children to death after he left. Is the way it felt to me. There was like a weird amount of tension in that moment.
Well, I mean, and that agrees with what I just said of everyone around him is saying they're children, but Mr. Banks does not understand that or is unwilling to admit that they are children. And yeah, he was kind of like wanting to make sure they were okay, not gonna get it.
The wife in the movie, she is simultaneously trying to be a feminist while also quailing at every word her husband says to her.
Oh yeah, she's a suffragette in the streets. A mouse in the sheets?
I guess so. I hadn't thought about it like that, but
I don't know. I don't know where that came from. No, she is, yes, out there to being a suffragette, but in front of her husband, she is quivering with fear.
Yeah.
She is
like you do when you
him.
get hit a lot.
And husbands in the time did hit their wives. It was perfectly legal.
So the children, when they're writing up the request for the nanny, they're specifically requesting not the book Mary Poppins, which I found very funny.
I know, because they say she must be pretty and must never smell of barley water.
Yeah,
and
Michael is very specific about
I'm pretty sure
warts
they
and
mentioned barley water in the book that's something Mary Poppins smelled like.
A rum cake or rum punch. Yeah.
That was the smell of the drink.
Which they do keep that in the movie. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, the nannies get blown away. I found that very funny. I was actually kind of impressed with the special effects there.
For the 60s.
Yeah. I thought that was really good. Yeah, these children's look of surprise, like as they're watching in the window and as Mary Poppins comes in, looks drug-induced. They look so fucking bored.
I mean, children actors are never that great.
Yeah, I know. But there was one point where Michael, he looked fucking stoned.
Was it when she said, don't be, you're not a codfish or something?
Yeah.
And his mouth is hanging away. He's like, oh.
No, it's later on. I can't remember exactly. I think it's when they meet Dick Van Dyke, and he's just standing there, mouth agape, and he just looks like he's on so many Zoloft.
I found it really interesting. A big difference between the book and the movie. In the movie, the people around her are aware of the magic and see it. Ellen sees them go on the banister. Bert knows that she's magical and can make the picture work.
Right. She's not bird racist.
She does deny it happens sometimes. But people are allowed to come into this world with her, and I think part of it's being in the movie.
Yeah.
You have to have that world shown to us as the movie.
Right.
But it's just so much more welcoming and inclusive.
And it doesn't feel like you're being... It's much more clear that it's being cheeky and not gaslighty.
Yes, because in the book, she is just so mean.
She's like, fuck you, that didn't happen. No.
Yes.
I'll never, no, fuck you.
And in the book, or in the movie, she does a couple of times, but the other people around them also know these things are changing and happening. They make the magic real in the world around them. Mm-hmm. Whereas in the book, it's more like being a peeping Tom and seeing these things happening, but no one else saw it and you can't prove it happened.
Right. So yeah, they go and meet with Dick Van Dyke, and oh yeah, that's right. He's doing his little circus bit, and Michael looks like he is on black tar heroin watching Dick Van Dyke act like a goober. Mm-hmm. And that sent me. I was like, I hate the way this kid is looking at this grown adult man. So the painting world is just oversaturated. And I hate
it's
the way it looks.
Bright.
I hate it.
Yeah. It's a lot of singing and dancing. And I found it kind of weird how much everyone worships her in the cartoon world.
Yeah, because
they just sing about how lovely Mary Poppins is for 25 minutes.
Yeah, so is this Bert doing this, or just for some reason cartoons just worship Mary Poppins? I don't know.
Right. I don't know. And then she sings about how he's a gentleman and she doesn't have to be scared when he's
she
nearby.
Specifically refers... Yeah, that was really weird.
I know, I was like, oh, God.
I can totally trust that you won't rape me, probably. Yeah. Your blood is blue. You're secretly blue-blooded or something? I don't know. Like, you're very noble.
A gentleman.
Yeah.
Yes.
I felt like that's what it was. I hate the penguins.
But they're cute.
I hate the penguins.
They're funny.
But I hate them.
I love them.
They're the OG Madagascar penguins.
I thought that same thing too. I was like, hey, I'll bet Madagascar got their penguins from this.
You see, I didn't even think that. Lily thought that.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
You guys share the same one brain cell.
Yes, we do. Yeah. Was she singing
dancing
along the whole time?
Not really. We were both critiquing. Usually when we go into a movie with critique mode, we're harsh on it and just shitting on it hard.
I was surprised how much I had to criticize because I just have that warm nostalgia, lovely songs, lovely dance numbers, beautiful clothes.
Did you know about the salt tap dancing thing? Because that was new for me. Like, as a substitute for having tap shoes, you would throw salt on the ground.
And it would make that noise.
Yeah. Lily told me about that, and that confused the hell out of me. I'd never heard of such a thing.
I never did it. I don't know. I mean, I saw the cartoon, so I'd seen him do it.
Which I think that made more sense back when everybody was wearing hard-toed or hard-soled shoes.
Yeah. That would have made more sense then.
I just want to know how much cocaine was required for the merry-go-round horse scene and the horse race and the...
You never imagined that you would be on a merry-go-round? Okay. Way back
no,
then.
I've always had horses.
Before you were conceived. In front of grocery stores, they would have the little tiny merry-go-rounds.
Yeah.
For little tiny children. And you put in a quarter.
Yeah.
And it would spin you around for about 90 seconds.
Yeah.
Do you remember those?
I remember seeing them, but I always thought they were silly because I've always had horses. I've had horses longer than I've been going to grocery stores.
I would beg my mom to give me a quarter so I could sit on it and ride on it. And I would wish that it would go off of the merry-go-round and keep going up and down as a ride. That is something little children on merry-go-rounds feel. Huh. This doesn't have to use drugs.
Yeah.
This is a little kid thing.
Okay, but the fucking fox hunt...
That was also a critique of upper society because they rescue the fox.
Yeah.
And they work very clearly making fun of the upper crust.
Right. But, oh my God. Who the fuck came up with supercalifragilisticexpialidocious? I want to know.
The two brothers who wrote all the songs for those.
This is fucking stupid.
Massive. I don't know why.
Florida amounts of cocaine, I believe,
don't know.
personally.
I don't know.
Also, whenever Mary Poppins says supercalifragilisticexpialidocious backwards, it's not backwards. It's like almost
inversed.
phonetically backwards because she takes like chunks of it and moves it to the back of or the front of the word, but it's not. She doesn't say it backwards. It's very. We had subtitles on. I looked at it, and it fucking isn't. I've been lied to by these fucking fraud musical people, and I'm mad.
I think that we should skip most of the middle of the movie because
Probably
none
for
of
the
it
best.
matters.
Yeah, it really
And
doesn't.
I think we should just focus on the bank and the
God,
ending.
yeah, that's probably for the best.
Because I think that the movie was poking fun of finance and people in the banking industry with the movie. But it doesn't belong in a kid's movie.
Yeah.
It was boring and tedious, even for me.
Because the dad really wants to teach his son finance, and he's got
Banking.
a tuppence that he wants
2 pennies he wants to spend on bird feed and feed the birds.
And the bankers, like, I don't understand why a tuppence is so important to them. And then they blame the kid. Like, the kid is a kid, and he just wants his money back. He doesn't understand the interest bullshit.
No, he
as
doesn't
much as
care.
they try to entice him. And then they blame the fucking kid for starting the riot.
Yeah.
And that felt very gay. I hated that whole scene.
I think it is to also show the divide between the dad and his interests and what where the children are actually at. Of course, a 5-year-old would rather feed the birds or buy a candy than invest their pennies in a bank. And the dad is like, you're breaking social etiquette. You're not going along with him. You should know better. And he is having these bankers judge his parenting by how the children are behaving. And this is where we see the climax and the change of his character is he gets fired, he's morose. I was just feeling really frustrated that, like, Dick Van Dyke finds them when they run away.
He's the surrogate dad in the moment.
He's the surrogate dad in the moment. He's also our exposition, and he's saying
He's
defending
the fucking
he's defending the dad who was so mean to them. He expected them to behave like adults. He expected them to give up their money to put in the bank when they didn't want to. The dad was breaking their trust in him.
And boo friggity who, the patriarchy demands all the control and then whine when they have to depend on anyone else in the system.
And, like, there's a legitimate criticism. Who's the dad gonna go talk to?
Yeah.
Yeah, because they have a broken system. They cannot have legitimate friendships because everything is based on class and master and servant.
Yeah, maybe there shouldn't be anyone at the top.
Yeah, maybe we shouldn't be segregated this way. And you know what? If you had a normal family, you could go talk to your own father.
And maybe the 1% would taste so much better if they were fattened up and foie gras a little bit.
Jeez, it was so frustrating that it was, think of your poor dad, the one who scared you. And then Jane is crying, do you really think he needs our help? And I'm like, no. This is gaslighting. This is horrible. Your dad is the one who should know better.
Yeah, the dad is the victim in this fucking movie.
The dad is the victim, and then he gets the come to Jesus moment and improves. And then he gets becomes partner on the bank because the old man died. And it's like, why? Why did you change this movie? The book was based on the woman, Mary Poppins. Why is this movie about the dad who had no character in the book?
Yeah, he's had his little crisis and said supercalifragilisticexpialidocious at the banker guys. And he comes back home, and they have the cop there.
Yes, because he was there to help them search for him.
Right. The cop says something on the phone that was very bizarre. Never had hanky-panky, if you know what I mean. I don't know what he means.
He means he was not known for doing anything out of turn.
Yeah, but hanky...
They didn't use hanky-panky for sex back then.
God damn it.
They did not. He had 4 children.
What does that fucking mean?
It means, like, he had never done anything weird.
He's never fucking around.
He's never done anything weird.
Yeah, it sounds so ridiculous.
Yes. And it was in the 60s, so surely they were using hanky-panky for sex in the 60s.
So they finally go back to Mary Poppins at this point. And suddenly the fucking umbrella talks. And he's like, well, you're going to miss him, aren't you? And she's like, no, And then flies off.
And they're off happy with their happy lives.
Yeah.
Let's go fly a kite.
One other question. What's the opposite of pigeon-toed? Because that's how Mary Poppins stands.
I saw that. Every time you see her feet, they're pointed
pointed
directly
straight
out.
Do you think that's like something they had to do with like the wires or something to keep her going a certain trajectory or something?
But she's even that way in several of the dance numbers.
Yeah.
When we see her feet
and
are
she's
pointed
tapping her
that
feet
way.
to Bert dancing on the chimney, and
I don't know why her feet are pointed
that's
that
weird.
way.
Maybe that's just the actress, and they just
It made me think of a ballet stance. I don't know what it's called, but you know that ballet stance where their feet are going that way?
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know why her feet were pointed that way.
Okay, and then one last thing for the credits that Lily noticed, not me, because I was fucking burnt by the end of this movie. They scrambled the letters up for Dick Van Dyke, because Dick Van Dyke also played the bank manager.
Yes, the old man.
Yeah. They scrambled up the letters of his name to Keed for some reason as the acting credit.
Yeah.
And then they unscrambled it. It's very cute.
Yes.
And yeah.
It's because he played Bert and he played the dad, the old bank manager.
Yeah.
And he was in all that get-up, so it was hard to tell it was him.
Right.
So that was kind of like a little reveal at the end of the movie.
Yeah, it was fun. So,
You hated it.
yeah, I didn't. The book, I will give the book a C.
Me too.
Yeah.
A solid C. Because it feels like I'm not clear on who the audience is. I know she said it's for adults, but come on, man.
It's really confusing. It's not clear.
It's not a good book, in my opinion.
It's interesting. Now that it has gotten so much popularity, I feel like it's gotten a lot of its popularity from the movie.
I think so.
Yeah. So I feel like looking back and seeing that as an attached piece makes it very interesting, but I don't know that it makes it good.
No.
Yeah.
And like, they're just completely separate stories. They are so different. The only similarities were the names, Jane and Michael, and Mary Poppins,
Yeah.
and a couple of the little things that happen in the book happen in the movie. The rest of it feels like they just came up with whole cloth on their complete own.
Yeah.
This is where we want to go. We want it to be cute. We want it to have song and dance.
Just
and
using the characters out of the book as a set piece. Yeah.
Well, and Mary Poppins was completely rewritten.
Yeah.
Her character, aside
Not a
from
mean
being a
bitch.
nanny, she is nothing at all like even her form of magic, even who she is, even her relation to other mythology is completely scrapped.
Yeah. She's just vaguely magic.
Vaguely magic. Like they wonder, is she a witch? No, she can't be because she doesn't have a broom.
Yeah. It's just...
But it kind of implies she might be more witch than anything else.
Yeah. Now, as far as the movie, I'm going to personally give it a D, and then I'm going to separately grade Dick Van Dyke as S tier. And
He's amazing.
because he is clearly a warlock, and I'm afraid he will curse me if I do not.
He's still alive. He will come and find you.
Yeah, he can get me.
Yep.
He's probably faster than me.
Probably. And live with those long legs that are 6 feet
Yeah.
long. He will always catch you.
God damn.
And that mouth, he will swallow you. He is huge.
Oh, boy. He's like 7.5 feet tall, I'm pretty sure.
I know. He is so gangly. His dances are so funny because he's all leg.
He is legitimately a force to be reckoned with on screen, because I didn't see anything else that was... I forgot the other characters were there anytime he was doing anything.
He's just charm. He is just so charming.
Yeah. That and the scene with the uncle, I love that. They're just sitting there cracking jokes, and it's fun.
I love
They're crying.
to laugh. At the end when he tells the uncle a joke,
Yeah.
and he's like, "You're right. That was nothing like a good joke." And Dick Van Dyke is crying.
Yeah, that was the only consistent thing that I kept. That's the only reason this movie is a D to me, is because the uncle was still in it.
So I thought that I would rewatch this movie and give it an A because I loved it so much as a kid.
Yeah.
And then rewatching it now, I was like, whoa.
Gross.
This is gross. These poor kids. What the fuck is going on? So I will give it a C because I still
Childhood memories.
think the songs, I think the musical numbers are fantastic. I think they're really well written. I think that this shouldn't have been named Mary Poppins.
Yeah.
I think this is a lot more... Did you ever see Nanny McPhee?
No.
It has the same story plot of Nanny comes in, whips everyone into shape, solves all their problems, leaves when they're all better.
But much more stern.
She is much more stern.
Yeah.
She is much more like book Mary Poppins.
Right.
She also comes in with a face full of warts, and when the last wart falls off, that's when she leaves. And her warts symbolize how mean and rotten the children are. There's also 7 of them, and they're all very badly behaved.
Yeah. Okay.
So I think that's actually a better movie as far as like clean storyline.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, why was this about the dad? Because in some ways this is aimed at children, but the children have less storyline than the dad does. And Dick Van Dyke has more than the children do as far as growth or anything. I was disappointed.
Yeah.
I was disappointed.
Bummer.
It was a bummer.
Well, I'm developing a new conspiracy theory as to involving cocaine, why the Disney theme park was built in Florida, and the wizardry of Walt Disney and Dick Van Dyke. So I'm going to work on that for the next 2 months.
Until next time,
Don't be a child in the 1800s.
don't get milk leg.
Look at what?
Milk leg.
Milk leg?
That's where they don't get vitamin D and their legs are all weird looking. And
Oh, yeah, they get the rubber legs. Ew. Yeah, don't do that.
That's what the fishmonger probably had.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.